In the dark and cruel world of medieval punishment, few fates were as terrifying as being thrown into an oubliette. The word comes from the French oublier, meaning to forget, and that was exactly the point. An oubliette wasn't just a prison cell, it was a place where people were thrown to be forgotten. An oubliette was usually a small, narrow, vertical pit built into the floor of a castle dungeon. Unlike normal cells, there was no door, only a small trapdoor or grate above. Prisoners were lowered or simply dropped inside, and once the hatch was shut, there was no way out. The walls were smooth, often damp and slimy, making it impossible to climb. In many cases, the pit was barely wide enough to sit down in, and some were so tight that prisoners couldn't even stretch their legs. When used as a form of execution, the oubliette worked through starvation, dehydration, and sheer despair. Prisoners were given no food or water, sometimes a few scraps at the start, but nothing after that. They were left in total darkness, alone with their thoughts, waiting for death to come slowly. The psychological torture was as severe as the physical suffering. In pitch blackness, people would lose all sense of time and reality. Some screamed for hours or days before finally going silent. The smell was often unbearable too. Some oubliettes were already filled with rotting bodies from earlier victims, and new prisoners were thrown on top of the dead. Rats and insects crawled through the remains. The air was damp and heavy, and disease spread easily. For some captives, death from infection or suffocation came faster than starvation. While oubliettes are often associated with French castles, similar pits existed across Europe. In England, the Tower of London and other medieval fortresses had deep dungeon shafts, sometimes mistaken for oubliettes. The Château de Loches in France and Warwick Castle in England both claim to have real examples. Many were bottle-shaped, wider at the bottom, which made it harder for prisoners to escape or even move. Executions by oubliettes were not common, but they were reserved for the most despised enemies, spies, traitors or nobles who had fallen from grace. The idea wasn't just to kill them, but to erase them. No public spectacle, no last words, just quiet disappearance. A prisoner might last several days before dying from thirst, or perhaps longer if the captors cruelly kept them barely alive by lowering bits of bread and water through the grate. Over time, the oubliette became a symbol of medieval cruelty, a dark legend whispered about by later generations. In truth, not every pit in a castle dungeon was used for death. Some were storage holes or short-term cells, but the stories of men and women left to rot in the dark captured people's imaginations for centuries. To die in an oubliette was to be buried alive in stone, to fade slowly into the darkness beneath a castle floor, forgotten by the world above. It was death designed not only to end a life, but to erase its memory. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.